Welcome those who are here. Welcome to those who may be watching us via the live stream. We are pleased to have that technology, and we're very thankful to City TV for their cooperation and help with that as well. For those who may also be watching this on a recorded video sometime in the future, we still welcome you and are excited about your interaction with us in that way. I'm Tom Waltice, the director of Geneva, and we are very pleased to have our speaker with us. I'm not going to say his name. I'm leaving all those details to my assistant director in a few minutes for a very specific reason as well. Just to give you a little background, I hope you've been able to see a little bit of the PowerPoints going past here to tell you a little bit about what Geneva is and its history and background some. I hope you've paid a little bit of attention to that. Geneva is a Christian exploration at the University of Iowa. And we use that word Christian very importantly, but also exploration. We want our students to explore what their faith means for their studies, what their faith means for their life, what their faith means for their sense of mission in the world, their vocation. We also want to encourage the exploration of all of God's creation that happens on the university in wonderful ways, and we want to be encouragers of that as well. Explorations, whether that's in science, or in human interactions, or in any other ways that is being studied in this university. We want to contribute to that as well and come alongside the university in celebrating the wonders of education and exploration. Over the last year and a half, it's been a difficult time for all of us. A difficult time for work, for universities, for family, for social life. We are prayerful and hopeful that we're coming to the other side of this issue and can start to move forward from there as well. It's been a difficult time to do ministry, as you can imagine, and some of you have experienced in other ways as well. But we've tried to be here as an encouragement and support for the students as we've been working with them. I want to share with you just one quote that one of our students wrote at the end of last year, where we thought, we've done what we could, but it's been a very difficult year. One student wrote, "Geneva has been a great group to be part of my freshman year. The fellowship was wonderful in such an impersonal year of online classes. The leaders felt like friends, and I really got to enjoy getting to know other students. The Bible studies we did every week kept me thinking about what was important. Geneva helped keep me grounded in God in a difficult time. Thank you." And that in many ways expresses our mission as we are ongoing as well. We have a student ministry, and if students are live streaming this or are here or will see this in the future, we hope that you'll come and join with us as we explore important questions of life, explore how Scripture speaks to those questions, and other ways of continuing that Christian exploration. We continue to meet with students. The pandemic has forced us to put a lot of energy into online productions, and I hope you will investigate through our website or through Apple Podcasts even. I'm really pleased to get those out there. And the other day I checked, and you can even find Geneva podcasts on Audible. And we've been doing a series of podcasts. We have a 19-part series on the book of Genesis. Matt and I have just discussed through the book of Genesis. We did that as kind of our first trial, and those were about 50 minutes long, and our feedback was make them shorter. And so our next exploration was to do something we're ongoing doing now, and we invited our student Andrew as well to be part of a discussion. We're doing an oral commentary on the Gospel of Matthew, in which we're taking section by section to the Gospel of Matthew for about 30 to 40 minutes of just discussing what are some of the questions, issues, applications of that. So we encourage you to check that out as well. I also have published through our website and our podcast a collection of 46 about 30-minute edited lectures that I used to give to students when I taught on an introduction to the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. And so those are out there in our podcast as well. We put those out there and don't know exactly the effect, but we hope that they can be useful, not only here and for you, but throughout the world as well. So we are seeking to do ministry and continuing to do that. We were hoping to be able to have a reception and talk more about that afterwards here, but we're not to that point yet. And so we aren't able to have that reception afterwards tonight. We will have a time of Q&A. We'll have a time afterwards also of informal mixing. If you want to meet and address questions of people here or just talk with each other, well, you're welcome to do that as well. We also are a ministry supported by donations, and we will not pass a plate, but there is a small model of the old Capitol building back there that you can put a donation in if you would like to support our ministry as well. As I said, I'm not going to say much about our speaker because I want to give that special privilege to the Assistant Director of Geneva, Matt Moore. Matt's had a long relationship with Reverend Ghubril, and excited to have him in doing ministry with us, and the pleasure of him being able to introduce the speaker.
Thanks, Tom. As Tom hinted at, I've known Saleem for at least almost 15 years, I would say, and it's been a joy to get to know him over that time. And let me share with you just some things about Saleem. So Saleem is a passionate advocate for children and for the city of Pittsburgh. He's an ordained Presbyterian minister and has devoted his life to serving the people of his community through outreach and education programs. In 1985, Saleem founded the Pittsburgh Project, a community development organization that provides free home renovation to hundreds of vulnerable seniors each year. It also mentors, educates, and deploys thousands of youth in meaningful volunteer community service. Saleem led the Pittsburgh Project until 2008 when he assumed the leadership of the Pittsburgh Promise. A lot of P's in that there, Saleem, for your orgs. The Pittsburgh Promise works for a future where all urban youth are equipped to reach post-secondary success. All public schools serve all children excellently. Pittsburgh is flourishing in all its neighborhoods, and Pittsburgh's workforce is wildly diverse, highly skilled to advance a region that is good and just for all. In the last 12 years, the Pittsburgh Promise has sent more than 9,500 urban youth to college and provided them with over $144 million in scholarships. Saleem is a volunteer pastor at Mosaic Community Church in Pittsburgh. He also serves on the board of the Bull Foundation, Vibrant Pittsburgh, and the World Affairs Council of Pittsburgh. As Tom said, Saleem is a close friend and mentor to me. I moved to Pittsburgh in 2013. Saleem always made time to discuss faith, life, and career decisions with me. I consider him a close friend and mentor. He has a huge heart and has always been an encouraging, kind voice in my life. Saleem also officiated Marissa and I's wedding, which was a wonderful day for both of us in no small part because of his wise words. He's been a source of support for our marriage, and I look forward to his words today. May they be a blessing to those gathered here today and filled with the Holy Spirit. Thanks, Saleem.
Well, hello, everybody. Hello. It is so kind of you to come out tonight and hang out together in this lovely space. Matt, you are precious to me, and more than you, Marissa is precious to me. When Tom was interviewing you for the job here, and he called me for a reference, and he asked me what's the best thing about Matt Moore, I said, Marissa. That's the best thing about Matt Moore. So, yeah, my name is Saleem Ghubril. My brother-in-law, George, is here, and he is the reason why, for a period of my life, ended up in Iowa City. I am an immigrant. I'm an Arab, born and raised in Lebanon in the Middle East, born in Beirut, raised in southern Lebanon, about 35 miles north of the border with Israel in a city called Sidon, in a little village outside of the city called Sidon. And during the early days of the Civil War, one of many that part of the world has known, but the last big one that started in 1975 and went through the early 90s. We took some casualties as a family, and we fled in July of 76, and of all places, we ended up in Iowa City, Iowa, not the first place immigrants come to who are fleeing from their war-ravaged homes. Ended up in Iowa City because my brother-in-law was already here with my sister. He came here in 71 to do his residency and stayed. And now at the age of 107, he's still practicing medicine in this town. So that's where a name like Saleem Ghubril comes from. I'm not sure why, but some folks have a hard time pronouncing it. I think it's an easy name to pronounce. So I've had people, not jokingly, but thinking for real that that's my name, call me Salami or Slime. I don't find that flattering. Salami I don't mind, but Slime not fond of. My favorite one is somebody once called my office and and asked to speak to Shamu. And, to which my colleague who answered the phone said, "Oh, he's at SeaWorld today." I love that answer. He's at SeaWorld today. So I'm really touched that Matt wanted me to be here and that Tom approved. And I have to tell you, when he said, "Would you be our speaker at the Geneva lecture series?" That was an intimidating invitation to me because I'm not a lecturer. And I looked at who the previous speakers were and said, one of these things is not like the others. They're all brilliant academicians, astrophysicists, sociologists, historians, literary scholars, brilliant folks who have published, and then I am none of those things. I am a storyteller. So I said, if you don't mind having your lecture series speaker not be a lecturer, then I'm your man. But if you're looking for a lecturer, you don't want me. So if you came expecting a lecture tonight, I'm not sure if the Sanctuary is still a pub here in town. That's where I did my debut as a guitar player in Iowa City. But if you may want to go there tonight and opt out. But if you choose to stay, that would be a gift of grace. I am going to tell you a series of stories. And the first one is about a small number of the world's most powerful people. Then the next two or three are about folks you've never heard of, will never hear of, and most of the world doesn't pay attention to. Then I'm going to end it with just kind of a retelling of a very familiar biblical story from the Hebrew Scriptures. So in 2009, President Obama hosted the leaders of the 20 largest economies in the world. He hosted them for the G20 summit and chose Pittsburgh as the site of the G20 summit in 2009. That was a big deal for us. That was his first year in office, and loved the fact that he kind of noticed Pittsburgh and thought that there were some significant things happening in our small city, and he wanted the world leaders to come to that small city and have their deliberations there. It was great that they did that. And that was back when President Obama had dark hair and looked less battle-weary than he looks now, although he's looking pretty fine right now, I think. So they were meeting at the Convention Center, which is downtown Pittsburgh. Right next door to the Convention Center is one of the public high schools that's part of our Pittsburgh Public School District, one of our urban high schools. And it happens to be the Creative and Performing Arts High School. So our First Lady, Mrs. Obama, she was charged with hosting the first spouses of the world leaders. And she wanted them to see what public education looks like in this country. And there happened to be one conveniently located, and it also happened to be an arts high school. So she used that as her opening event. When I learned that she was doing that, I desperately wanted to be in that room at the time when our First Lady and all of her guests are there. And maybe it shouldn't be surprising that it was really hard to get invited. And it was mostly hard to get invited because, I mean, let's face it, when you have the spouses of the leaders of the 20 largest economies, you kind of don't want to have too many Arabs there. That is, you can laugh at that one, it's okay. If I tell the joke, you can laugh. You cannot tell that joke, however. So you know, I mean, I get checked for explosives more than I get my temperature checked during COVID. So I'm frequently checked for explosives because, of course, all Lebanese people just walk around with explosive jackets. So it was really hard for me to get invited, and I desperately wanted to be there. begged, pleaded, bribed, cajoled, because like I work with kids, I raise money for our kids to go to college, my job is to support these kids, I want to be in that room. And they said, there's no reason for you to be in that room. Then that was a mistake that they made. I said, well, great. Then what you need to do is give me a job. Give me a job to do when the first spouses are in that building, and I will do the job, whatever it is. So they ran me through all of the clearances and the security checks that were required and finally concluded that, okay, maybe it's okay to invite him, but he has to have a job. We need a doorman who will open and close doors for the first spouses as they're coming in. I said, great, I will be the best doorman in the history of doormanning work. But then they said, okay, now we know that you kind of have this crush on our First Lady. You cannot talk to her, you cannot shake her hand, you cannot make you cannot reach out to her in any way, no hugs, no handshakes, no conversation, you will just open the door, she'll walk in, and you'll close the door. I said, noted. And I behaved, and I did exactly what I was told. But we made eye contact. We did. Our eyes connected. And I'm told that she has not forgotten that moment ever since. So Mrs. Obama and I made eye contact when I opened the door, and she walked in. She was very gracious. And then we had some of our students in the building. We closed school for that day, but we had some students there so that the first spouses can go from room to room and see what our literary arts room looked like and hear from students about what they're writing, and go to the instrumental room and listen to a couple of them play their instruments, go to the dance room, and you get the point. So they took a tour of the building and met some students. But then at the end of that, they went to the auditorium where our students performed for our guests. But Mrs. Obama also invited 3 of her favorite artists, at least that's what she said, 3 professional artists to perform on stage that night. And I will tell you the genre of each artist and put their picture up. And if you recognize that face, shout out the name, please. So the first artist was a country singer by the name of... Okay, Trisha Yearwood. And the second artist is a pop artist by the name of Sarah Bareilles. All right. That kind of got a little bit more traction with all you young whippersnappers. And then the third artist was a hip-hop artist by the name of... Look at you up on your hip-hop world. Yo-Yo Ma, not a hip-hop artist, and you didn't take the bait. Although it sounds like his name, that could be a name for a hip-hop artist. Yo-Yo Ma. All right, so Yo-Yo Ma was the third one, and they all performed, and they were terrific. And then we needed to get the first spouses and their entourages out of the building without creating a mayhem, so we told the students to stay in the room. And then we asked the 3 professional artists to have a Q&A time with our students while the security folks took out the dignitaries who were in the room. So it's terrific to have these highly skilled, lightly known by some artists take questions and provide answers for our group of young people who were aspiring artists. It was really a great thing. And our kids asked great questions, and some were hilarious. Most were really significant. The last one was a great question that resulted in an answer that for me has been very profound. So the question was, you're professionals, you're on stage often. Our guess is that you've had some embarrassing moments when you were on stage. So here are young artists, they're aspiring to be on stage, and they just kind of wanted to know if their role models have had embarrassing moments, and if yes, what those were. So Sarah Bareilles answered first, and her answer was this. She said, I was playing a high school gym packed with middle school and high school kids, and I used language that was terribly inappropriate, and I regret using bad language with minors in the room. That was her most embarrassing moment. That's when I said, well, gee, cry me a river. And that's where I was quoting Justin Timberlake. So that was her most embarrassing moment. But then Tricia Yearwood told the following story. She said she had a gig in London, and it was a sold-out crowd, packed room. She showed up, she got up on stage, sang her first song, lost her voice, sent everybody home with rain checks, came back a year later, same audience, same venue, sang her first song, and lost her voice again, only to discover that there were fabrics in that auditorium to which she was allergic. So that was her most embarrassing moment. Yo-Yo Ma gave what I thought was a very profound answer. Now, if you've watched Yo-Yo Ma perform, you know that he really gets animated, and he's into his instrument, and he's playing his cello, and his eyes are closed, and he's just kind of like feeling every string, and he's just kind of like leaning into the music, and he's leaned so much at times that he literally fell off the chair, and I've seen videos of that happening. But he said that's not the most embarrassing moment. He said his most embarrassing moment was being on stage and forgetting why. Now, he wasn't saying about like forgetting how to play or how to read music or how to, play along with other instrumentalists. I forgot why I was on stage, and that's a purpose kind of a statement. All of us have a purpose in this life. All of us have a stage on which we live out our lives. And it's important to be able to answer the question, why are you on stage? With an answer that is satisfactory to you. It doesn't have to be satisfactory to anyone else, but it needs to be satisfactory to you, and you need to have that answer. You might think, well, man, Saleem, you might occupy stages, but all I do is I'm just in a humble little operating room at the university hospital. That is your stage. I'm a school teacher in Tiffin. That is your stage. And whatever you do, I am a full-time dad. That is your stage. And you need to answer, now, why am I? Why am I doing the work of a full-time dad or a surgeon or a teacher? Answer why you are on stage. So that was the first story and the first lesson from a group of super powerful people. Now I'm going to go to some less powerful and certainly unknown people. I know these kids. You don't know them. We did a photo shoot with a group of elementary school kids in one of our schools in Pittsburgh Public. And of course, we had the permission of parents. And we asked each of the young children what they wanted to do when they grew up. Of course, we're not going to hold them to that. But we asked them that question. And then we went and got them a uniform, an adult-sized uniform of that vocation. And then that was the photo shoot, a whole bunch of kids. There was about a dozen of them. I'm only showing you two tonight. In the uniform that they would one day wear if they did that thing that they said they wanted to do when they grew up. And the reason we went with adult-sized kids is to remind the grown-ups that we are on stage to help them grow into their vision for themselves. We're not on stage to help them grow into our vision for them, but we are on stage to help them grow into their vision for themselves. So that young lady wanted to be a Pittsburgh police officer, so we got her a Pittsburgh police uniform, and this young man wanted to be a lawyer, and figured like the only thing I could come up with for a uniform for a lawyer is to give him one of my suits, and looks rather fine in it. I spend a lot of time in our schools, and that's a privilege that comes with my job. And I get to interact with lots of young people, a very rich privilege that comes with my job. Walking into, by the way, I don't want to brag, but I am the most sought after commencement speaker for pre-kindergarten promotion ceremonies. Nobody gets more invitations for pre-kindergarten promotion ceremonies than I do. And if I can do it, I always say yes, because they are just a blast. And at one of them, it was in the gymnasium, there were some pre-kindergartners. How old are they? 4 years old? So there's like, I don't know, 4-year-old little boys and girls in this gymnasium. And my job is to inspire them to dream big dreams for their futures and work hard toward reaching those. I'm talking to 4-year-olds. So I did my best. I thought I was particularly good that day. I was really on. And then a kid raised his hand and wanted to ask a question, and I was feeling a little bit too sure of myself. And I was like sure he was going to say something like, Saleem, man, you just opened my eyes to a whole new universe. I was lost before I met you. Now I'm found. I wish I had met you sooner. I wasted so many days. And his question was, why is your head so shiny? To which I said, I'm an Arab. This head produces more oil than Kuwait. He didn't laugh. He didn't get that. That's public school education. All right. But I love doing pre-kindergarten. I was once walking into one of our elementary schools, and there was a fourth, maybe fifth grade boy at the door, and he was very kind to me, opened the door and called me sir and invited me into their school and told me how glad he was that I was there that day. That was really nice. But then he posed a question to me. He said, so who am I to you? Thinking like, that's kind of young to be having an existential crisis. Like I didn't really know what he was asking, nor how to answer. So I said the following. I said, you're my newest friend. And he said, no, wait. Who is Essence to you? I said, oh, Essence is my goddaughter. He said, okay. Essence's parents just took me in as their foster son. She's my foster sister. You are her godfather. Who am I to you? Like he's just kind of trying to figure out his place in this relationship. And like I don't know what the actual term would be for the relationship that I had with him, so I made one up. He said, well, that makes you my nephew, and you can call me Uncle. He said, cool. Uncle, can I have $1? I said, my man, that's right. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. But like that who am I to you question, isn't that a question for which all of us want an answer? It's just like, do I matter to you? Do I count in your world? In what way do I count in your world? Would anybody miss me if I weren't in your world? Would I be dismissed by you if you knew certain things about me? Who am I to you? It's a great question. And I think answering that question is a part of figuring out why we are on stage. We are on stage to play an affirming role in the elevation of others, not the degradation of others. The way we deal with each other these days is very heartbreaking to me, where we dismiss whole swaths of people with whom we disagree or whom we don't understand, where we use derogatory language about folks whose opinions may be different than ours. We use types to turn, like when I turn you into a type by giving you a label, I no longer have to deal with you as a complex, sacred human being. I start dealing with you as the type that in my mind I think you are. So who am I to you is an equally important question to why are you on stage? Because frankly, the wholeness and the health of the globe depends on how we answer that question. Another one of our young people asked me another question. I happened to be at their high school, and he was in his 12th grade year, beginning of his 12th grade year. And I was there to do a little pep rally about the Pittsburgh Promise, and as Matt said, my job is to raise money and send city kids to college on a scholarship. And it's very easy to get our scholarship, and it's not competitive, meaning It's not like we have 500 scholarships and 3,000 kids apply. Every single kid who meets our basic eligibility criteria, which is a 2.0 GPA, show up to class 90% of the time, and you'll get a scholarship. And it's $5,000 a year for 4 years, so $20,000 per kid. So I gave that talk, and I was there afterwards to talk with students. One person stayed and hovered in the back until we were all done. He came to me at the end after everybody was gone, and he said, listen, I heard what you said. I'm starting my senior year with a 1.6 GPA. Do I have a shot at this? Is it still possible for me to get my GPA from 1.6 to 2.0? And frankly, I had no idea. But I couldn't say that to him, so I made up an answer. I said, yes, it's still possible. It's mathematically possible for that to happen. It won't be easy. It'll require you showing up big in every one of your classes, and you need to get straight A's in every one of your classes, every reporting period, and you'll get the scholarship. I said, okay, I know what I have to do. Now, this kid happened to be a neighbor. I live in an inner-city neighborhood in the city where we raised our kids, and they went to our neighborhood public schools. And this kid lived only 4 blocks from us in public housing, but I'd never met him, even though my entire life there has been working with kids. He's not one that I'd ever met. I didn't see him again until his high school commencement ceremony, and I did happen to be the commencement speaker that day for his high school. And we were backstage. He saw me, made a beeline, and he practically assaulted me. He did not. But he was like in my face saying, listen, man, I did what you told me I had to do. Now, are you going to do what you told me you would do? And my first thought was, who are you? I talked to, I don't know, 3,000 kids since I talked to him. It clicked at the end. I said, I tell you what, why don't you come by my office tomorrow and bring me your report card? And lo and behold, this kid who after 3 years of high school accumulated 1.6 GPA, in his last year he had straight A's, every class, every quarter, the entire year. And the math more than worked. And he got our scholarship and went to Penn State, whom you devoured a few weeks ago. Went to Penn State. By the way, for that game, I was wearing my Iowa t-shirt and Penn State hat, so I knew I was going to win that day. Went to Penn State on probation, studied petroleum and gas engineering. Through the Promise, got an internship with one of the gas companies in town, and worked for them after high school. Has done very well. He's now on his 3rd engineering job, and his opportunities have just continued to climb. I was invited to the public housing facility a couple years ago to speak at a dinner they were having for young people who live in public housing and who are on honor roll or high honor roll. And I was, their speaker. We had our potluck dinner. I got up and gave a talk, and then somebody got up to the microphone and read the names of every kid in that room who was on honor roll or high honor roll, and they came forward after their names were read because they would have the opportunity to have their picture taken with the Promise Man. Just what every kid dreams about, right? So they read the names, kids came forward, had their pictures taken with me. But there were 5 kids back to back whose names were read who had the same last name as the young man whose story I just told you. And after the reading of each one of their 5 names, there was a woman in the audience who shouted, "Well, that's my baby!" And she came forward with her baby because she wanted to have her picture taken with the Promised Man along with her kid. So she came down 5 times and had her picture taken with each of her 5 kids with me, which is a great honor, but also kind of funny to me. But by the 5th one, I was crying. So like I don't know you, I'd never met you, but I know your world, and I know your circumstances, and I know the odds that are stacked against you, but somehow you have managed to break all sorts of cycles with your kids. How'd you do it? And she mentioned her older son's name, and she said, it's him. And her line was, his younger siblings look at him and say, heck, if he can do it, anybody can do it, then I can certainly do it. And they saw him driving the nice car and buying the nice clothes. And I'm in close touch with this young man. He's now, like I said, working on his 3rd engineering job. He's crushing it. He's getting his MBA next year from Carnegie Mellon University. But 3 weeks ago or so, I got a text from him with a picture of a lovely little humble 2-bedroom house. And I know that he had already bought a house he's married, he's got 3 kids. So as I wrote him back, I said, like, what is this? He said, I just bought this for my mom because I wanted her to get out of the public housing where she's lived all of her adult life. And his question to me when he was a senior in high school was essentially, will you give me another chance? And has anybody here, by the way, ever needed a second chance? Anybody? 3 people? Okay, good. I'm so proud of the rest of you. I mean, the reality is we've needed multiple chances. When we came to Iowa City when I was 16 years old, at that time there were 2 public high schools in town, and I will not name them. But I went to both of them because I got thrown out of the first one. I was a bad boy. I deserved it. I was both dumb and bad. And I got thrown out of the first one and was given a second chance at the second one. And I'm grateful for that. Then started at the University of Iowa, and I got thrown out after my freshman year because my cumulative grade point average at the end of 2 semesters taking full course loads was 0.9 at the end of that year. Now, it takes effort. It takes real effort to perform so poorly. It doesn't happen, without intentionality. So I was thrown out, and that was kind of like a moment for me. It was sobering. Went to Kirkwood Community College and took a semester worth of courses and did better. Reapplied to the University of Iowa and then was allowed back in on probation. And then that semester, my first semester back, started in January and then in February at St. Andrew Presbyterian Church, where Randy is one of the ministers over there. I was on the outreach committee. I was doing my job one Sunday morning, and a beautiful girl showed up and decided to go reach out. And I was on the committee. And ended up 6 months later, getting engaged to her, and 11 months after that, marrying her. And that kind of series of second chances has played a transformative, life-changing role in my life. And we ended up moving to Philadelphia to spend 2 years together mentoring with a sociologist doing amazing work with kids in the city of Philly, and then moved to Pittsburgh to start the Pittsburgh Project and later the Pittsburgh Promise. That is the credit for all of that is because somebody looked at me and said, there might be something in there, and we're not going to give up on you. So we're on stage to help people identify who they are and who they want to be. And then when they mess up, as everybody surely does and will, to say, we stand ready with a bunch of second chances. Okay, this is Mr. Lamont Waller. Never met him. This was in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, June 6th this year, just a few months ago. And apparently, I did not know this, but just outside of Pittsburgh is in Allegheny County, and then in the neighboring county, Westmoreland County, every year, there is a slingshot competition. And people from all over the world come to show off their slingshot skills. And Lamont won it. He can hit a needle from 100 yards away, from a football field away. He can hit a needle with a rock in his slingshot. Now, he can't thread it, but he can hit the needle. I find that pretty incredible that he can do that. And he can, and the velocity of the rock when it leaves his slingshot has gone through an entire deck of cards. Like, I don't want to be that deck of cards. I don't want to be anywhere in his line of fire when he's doing his slingshot. Now, that's all I'm going to tell you about the competition or about Lamont Waller. I just thought that was a cool photo and thought you might need a break from me talking. But I'm going to ask you a question now. Are there any stories, famous stories that you know about somebody with a slingshot? And that story is? I'm sorry? David and Goliath. Yes, yes. You're really on tonight. So David and Goliath, you know the story. And I'm not going to read it to you in its entirety, but I'm going to just put up a handful of short verses from that story. So there are two hilltops. One hilltop has the Philistines on it. One hilltop has the Israelites on it. And the valley in between is where they're going to wage their war. They each want to take the other army's hilltop, but they don't dare charge down the hill because they would get slaughtered as they're climbing up the other hill. So they're all kind of mounting atop themselves, their hilltops, and they're just kind of waiting for something to break the action. And finally, the Philistines said, you know, we're kind of tired of this. We've been hanging out up here for months, and there's no action. So we have this very large man. His name is Goliath. We're going to send him down to the field. And I think we're going to try to settle this like man-to-man combat. We'll just send Goliath down, and then we'll say, all right, you send us any person from your army, and they'll wage their battle. They'll fight their battle in the valley between the two, and whoever wins, their army is declared winner. Now, so that kind of went on for 40 days. Every day, Goliath goes down, send me somebody. And nobody comes. Goliath goes back up the hill and goes to bed, comes the next day. So 40 days that happened. But then when the Israelites saw Goliath, of course they freaked out. They were just going to think, this dude is close to 8+ feet tall, massive, armed. They're afraid of him. Who wouldn't be? So that never happened. So David at that time was a little boy. His brothers, by the way, were in the Israelite army, so they were on top of one of the hills. His father said, listen, we haven't heard from your brothers for a while. Take this basket full of bread to them, check on them, come back and give me a report. So little boy David, who was a shepherd, showed up, talked to his brothers. They were happy to get the bread. Not happy to see him. They felt he was just being a little too, this is a Pittsburgh word, nebby, a little too nosy and wanting to, he was curious about the battle, and he was just a little boy and he should just go on home after dropping off the bread. But instead, he listened to the conversation. He heard about King Saul, the head of the Israelite nation. And so David, went to Saul. He said, listen, if you don't have anybody willing to take on Goliath, sign me up, I'll do it. And my credentials are, I'm a shepherd. And, when a lion came once to attack my sheep, I took on the lion and I killed the lion. And once a bear showed up, and I took on the bear and killed the bear. So I wasn't afraid of the lion, wasn't afraid of the bear, and I'm not afraid of Goliath. Send me down. That was his line. More eloquent. Send thy servant down. Now it's biblical sounding. So, after some back and forth, Saul said, okay, I'll send you down. So Saul went and got his armor suit and put it on David. So David is a little boy. Saul is a grown man. And David is agile as a shepherd, and this thing was weighing 100 pounds. I don't know how much it weighed, but a lot. So Saul wanted to dress David in his own armor suit. And David said, no. He tried it on. It was very clunky, didn't fit, didn't look nice, but he felt just hindered by it. So he said, take it off. No, I am going down as I am. I'm going to be a little shepherd boy, and I'm going to take my slingshot, and then I am going to do my thing. So he went down. Now, it wasn't we don't think it was one of those slingshots. We think it was one of those slingshots. So he went down the hill, running towards Goliath, and he was slinging this thing. And then when he got within, I don't know how many feet, he let go, and his stone hit Goliath in his most vulnerable spot and took him out. For months before that, they were trying to take on Goliath and failed. And then one person volunteered, David. I find it hilariously funny that King Saul's response was, we're going to fight Goliath the same exact way we have fought the Goliaths of this world and failed every single time. So we're going to put this armored suit on you, and you're going to go man-to-man against Goliath, and he's going to eat you for lunch. Because that's the only way we know how to fight our battles. We have lots of giants in our worlds. I don't know whether, anybody here facing giants in your life right now? Some of them may be financial giants. Some of them may be health giants. Maybe relational giants. Maybe with your kids. Maybe with your parents. Maybe with your neighbors. Maybe with really old elected officials who just don't know when it's time to quit. Hypothetical. Maybe. But we keep fighting our battles the same exact way we've always fought them. And we get the same results we've always gotten. What is that called? It's insanity. And in the process of doing that, we end up missing out on new ways of thinking, new ways of being, new ways of doing, new ways of loving, new ways of creating, new ways of experimenting, new ways of solving problems, new ways of building bridges. And in the process of not doing those things, we leave a whole lot of people in our wake.
Ever since it's been a long time coming, but I know change gon' come. Oh yes it will.
Yes.
It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. I don't know what's out there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gon' come. Oh yes it will. I go to the movie and I go downtown. There's always somebody telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gon' come. Oh, yes, it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please. But then he winds up knocking me back down to my knees. There's been times when I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I know I can carry on. It's been a long but I know change gon' come. Oh, yes it will.
The incredibly talented and very powerful Ever Taylor, a student at the University of Iowa, a junior, senior, fourth year, looking at grad schools, somebody, and majoring in art and activism. Such a privilege, Ever, to get to do this with you. I met her for the first time yesterday. And Ever, my connection to Ever is from Ms. Shalisa Gladney. And I met Shalisa for the first time yesterday. About a month ago, Shalisa is the director of the Afro House. I know the longer name is Afro-American Center, Cultural Center, affectionately known as the Afro House on Melrose. I wanted somebody to sing the song with me, and I knew it wasn't going to be me to sing it. That's not fair to you all. I've just kind of sent Shalisa a blind email saying, this is who I am, graduated from Iowa. Here's a link to the organization that I lead. Here's a link to the Geneva lecture. You know, like there's a picture of me in both places. I think I'm legit. Any chance you might know a student who would join me in singing the song? And she wrote, yep, I do. I couldn't believe that she replied. But she replied. And I came to town yesterday. My first appointment was with Ever to practice. And I just played the guitar, hit the first chord, and Ever sang. And I was smitten. So thank you, Ever. Thank you. That was a great blessing. So if you kind of like missed the point, change is going to come. We have to make it come, and we have to be that change. I know that line is worn out. There's not a better one, because that's a really good one. That's a really good one. Going to wrap it up very quickly here with a story and a challenge. So the morning that I gave that talk, and when the young man who was a senior in high school heard me give it, that was at a high school that is 3 blocks from where I live. And across the street from the high school is a gas station. So the very next day, I'm on my way to work. I stopped at the gas station, and I'm just pumping gas. I'm doing what people do at gas stations. And then I hear somebody shout, "Hey, Pittsburgh Promise!" I assumed they were talking to me, so I looked up, and being the young, hip, relevant, cool guy that I am, I said, "Yo, what's up?" And I'm pumping gas. And then one of the 4 young men shouted from across the street. He said, "Hey man, are you for real?" I said, "Yeah, we're for real." We're yelling at each other. I'm still pumping gas. And he said, "My little brother missed school yesterday. Tell him what you got for him." And I shouted back, "Hey man, I got 20 G's for you." And G's stands for grands, which is like thousands of dollars. I thought somebody might need me to interpret. Got 20 G's for you. By the way, that's something that an Arab should not say to 4 African-American young men when they're on their way to school. Yeah. Homeland Security satellites zoomed in at that intersection. But his first question, "Are you for real?" has haunted me. And by the way, few things keep me up at night like that question keeps me up at night. Partly for really, really legitimate reasons. So in 2008, we made a promise to every kid in the city of Pittsburgh who will graduate from high school between the years 2008 and 2028, 21 years of graduates. Back when we didn't have a dime and had not done a thing, we said, we're we're calling this thing the Pittsburgh Promise, and we're committing to you for 21 years of graduates that we're going to send you to college on a scholarship. And it's my job to, I'm not the only one, but it's like our job to raise the money and fulfill that promise and deliver on it. So when he said, "Are you for real?" Like I interpreted that question as very, very, very specific. Like, I'm a senior, so you said you have, my little brother is in the 9th grade. Is he going to be covered by you? The class of 2028 started their 6th grade year this fall. So we still have a bunch of years to go, and in order to fulfill our promise, we have to raise $265 million. And we've raised so far, remarkably, all from private sources, all from Pittsburgh, little old Pittsburgh. We've raised so far $223 million. But what is still left to raise, the $42 million that remain, that's still the second largest campaign to what's happening at the University of Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon University. So like the two massive institutions with lots of alums and buildings that they can name after people. We are third in line in terms of the size of the campaign, and that's what's left. And everybody I know has given, and most more than once, and now people avoid me. I understand. But when he said, "Are you for real?" saying, I mean, he was very specific. Are you going to deliver on this? But it also means a lot more to me than, are you going to deliver on this? It also challenges my speaking, like the stuff that you say, are you for real about? Because it's so much easier to give a talk. It's so much easier to give a talk than to do the talk. So I hear that. You're here because this is the Geneva lecture series, part of the Geneva campus ministry. I'm assuming many, if not all of you, are people of faith. And that's a question that I hear as a person of faith. Like, you talk a great game, you people of faith. Are you for real? So this whole thing, the world will know that you are Christ's disciples if you have love. Are you for real about that? And not just love for people you like. It's love for everybody. Not people that agree with you. It's love for everybody. And it's not people who look like you. No, it's love for everybody. And not love when it's convenient. No, it's love always. Are you for real? Like, I'm haunted by that. I am haunted by that question. For the last several years, I've worn this bracelet, and it's for me. And it just says Black Lives Matter on it. It's in some places, that's a controversial statement. I don't know why. I don't understand. I don't understand. I know I've heard the explanations, but I don't understand why it's a controversial statement. By the way, the first Black Lives Matter statement was uttered by Jesus himself in Matthew 25, when he said, listen, if you want to show me that you're for real, you care for people who are hurting and who are hungry and who are wandering and who are homeless and who are and if you visit them and they're in jail, you take care of them when they're lonely. And if you don't do that, you're not mine. So he was elevating a group of people, at least some could have interpreted that way. In fact, some did. He was elevating a group of people, saying, if you're for real about me, I'll know that when you're for real about them. He did that several times in his short life on earth. And in one of them, and it for me is a very shaping passage, he was launching his ministry, and he delivered his inaugural speech. And his inaugural speech was to quote from the Hebrew prophet Isaiah. And he said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and he has anointed me to bring good news to poor people. He has sent me to, I just butchered the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has anointed me to preach good news to the poor, give sight to the blind, liberty for the captives, and declare the year of the Lord's favor for everybody. And then everybody, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Way to go, Jesus. In fact, what I just did is in Scripture, in Luke chapter 4. It said after he finished saying that and sat down, the crowd praised him. And they said things like, isn't that Joseph's son? Look at that, old Joe has a young man. Look, make us all proud. He should have just quit then. That was like the height of his popularity, but he had to open his mouth. He had to open his mouth because right after they did this, he said, okay, you all are, like, I just want to make sure that you heard me here. He said, there's a widow in Syria, and Elijah the prophet went to her. This is her message, the Syrian. There's a leper in your old city, Saleem, in the city of Sidon. His name is Naaman. And this message is for the leper in Sidon. You don't open the Bible and say Jesus pointing to somebody in Iowa City, with all due respect. But my hometown. And as soon as he mentioned the Syrian widow and the Arab leper, the crowd that was doing this pushed him to the edge of town and wanted to throw him over a cliff. They didn't succeed that day. They succeeded 3 years later because he continued with the message of saying, if you don't pay attention to that person whom I love, you're not paying attention to me. If you don't love that person who's different than you, but who is mine, you're not loving me. And he made the stakes really high by saying that when the day comes and we meet him, the question will be, when did we see you hungry and fed you? And the answer will be, when you fed him, you fed me. When did we see you hungry and not feed you? Well, when you didn't feed her, you didn't feed me. Ouch. Ouch. So I'll end it by just posing the final question to you all. Are you for real?
Thank you, Saleem. I hope you all have ways to connect to that. In challenges of what you've heard, we thank you for the challenge. We thank you for the work you're doing in Pittsburgh, in the model you're creating. You are intimidating me in your fundraising model a little bit. I'll be honest about that. But the challenge to be real. Thank you. We want to open it up to you of any comments, questions, observations. We would love to have that. As you're thinking of that possibly, I want to also notice that on the back table back there, we have just little slips of paper and there's some pens. If you would record your presence with us and give us a way to contact you, preferably an email, we'd love to be able to have contact with you as we develop new content online that you might relate to us with, or other programs or lectures or other things in the future. We'd love to be able to share that information with you as well. So anyone here that would like to raise an observation or a question? Back here, and I will bring you the mic.
Well, I'm Becky Benson. I know a lot of you who are here. And my question is, as you think about young people who are sort of trying to find themselves in the midst of their high school years, perhaps, what are some of the ways that you have seen mentorship be positive for them, or seen them make mistakes and then find successes after that? But for those of us who are parents of teenagers or supporting teenagers in our lives, since you've done a lot of work in that area, what are some of the things that you would say to encourage some of us?
Parenting, the easiest thing in the world to do. Next. By being glib, I'm admitting the difficulty of answering your question. But I do know that a great place to start is to listen for long periods of time to our young people and talk when necessary. Hard to do. Hard for me to do. All of us in our journeys, We've made some dumb choices. Now, I know my job as a dad, now I'm a granddad. I have 5 little boys who call me Jiddu, which is the Arabic word for grandpa. And they're 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Next year, they'll be 6, 5, 4, 3, and 2. But you know, like what I always wanted to do was, and it's the parents' job to do, is to protect our kids from harm. But by protecting them from harm, that doesn't mean that we eliminate the possibility of getting hurt. 1, we cannot. And then 2, it's probably not a good idea to kind of build a bubble around our kids. I feel like I'm not helpful in any way to you in answering your question, but I would be delighted to have some help from others who are experienced parents as well.
Anybody want to jump in or something else? It struck me as you were speaking that just a week ago with students, we read through the book of Jonah. And we kind of pointed out the wonderful VeggieTales song, The God of Second Chances. Another one would be wonderful to sing.
Yeah.
Did you by any chance prepare any more music? Your voice is incredible. What a gift. Thank you so much tonight. I'd love to hear something else.
Say no more.
Are you willing?
Oh, you for real?
I am for real. However, this is going to be a sing-along. And for some of us, it's a very familiar old gospel spiritual. And it's really about tonight's talk, so it's fitting. It's a very simple song. The line is, it's a line that we repeat, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. That's the song. Do you know it?
Yeah.
All right, I was hoping. Why don't you come up? Stay with me, Ever. And then this is everybody singing. And you know, we'll do it a few times, and after we do it a couple of times, so that those of you who don't know it, learn it, we'll start throwing in different words to replace nobody. Ain't gonna let, and we'll name something. But otherwise, the rest of the song stays the same. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom land. Let's try that again, everybody together. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom land. Ain't gonna let no fear, gonna let no fear turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no fear turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Give us a word.
Ain't gonna let no sadness turn me around,
Yeah,
turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no sadness
turn me around. I'm gonna
keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land.
Is there a word from the audience? Stress? Anybody feeling stressed? Ain't gonna let no stress turn me around, turn me around, turn me around.
Ain't gonna let no stress
Turn me around. I'm gonna
keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land.
Ain't gonna let racism.
Ain't gonna let racism turn me around. Oh, turn me around. Turn me around. Ain't gonna let racism turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking. Keep on walking.
Keep on walking. Keep on talking. Keep on walking.
Keep on talking. Keep on walking. Keep on talking. Keep on walking. Keep on talking. Marching up to freedom land.
I think that's a wonderful way to close. So we thank you all for coming out tonight. If you want to stay and talk to other people you see here, if you can recognize them through the mask, or if you can't, ask. If you want to talk to Saleem a little bit and just maybe hear a little bit more about his wonderful Pittsburgh Promise and some of the project as well that I know a lot of Iowa City people have been connected through the years. Wonderful project there as well. But we thank you all for coming and joining us, and pray God's blessing upon you, that he will keep you healthy and safe and keep you walking in freedom's way.
Yes. Thank you all.